Good morning. My apologies to each and all of you for being late. I thought the hearing was at 10:30. This is a hearing of the Bethany Beach Board of Adjustments for the purpose of considering an application submitted by John and Mary Conahan, owners of the property identified as Block 17, Lot 45 at 89 North Atlantic Avenue in the R1 Residential Zoning District of Bethany Beach, Delaware. Applicants seek a variance from Section 425 zoning, Attachment 3, Appendix 3, Table of Dimensional Requirements, maximum height, for an existing non-conforming structure to extend an existing roof area that exceeds the maximum height permitted with a new dormer. Let the record show that all 5 members of the board are present. I ask that each of the board members speak his name for the record at this time in order to facilitate identification of voices in preparing the transcript of this proceeding. My name is Michael Loftus.
My name is Sherwin Weinstock.
My name is Tim Hines.
My name is Steve Boyce.
My name is Jonathan Johnson.
Thank you. We also have with us Susan Frederick, the town's building inspector, and Raylene Menominee, the clerk to the board in the rear. The application and associated documents are part of the record and have been marked as Appendix 1. Before we begin, I want to note for the record that we are joined at this hearing by a new member of the board, Timothy Hines.
Thank you.
Tim was appointed by the board, to the board by the town council on May 16, 2025. We welcome Tim and look forward to working with him. We also have another piece of board housekeeping to address. Under Section 425-101A of the board's enabling statute, the chair and the secretary of the board are selected by the members from among themselves. Since we have a newly constituted membership, with Tim's arrival, it is timely to elect a chair and a treasurer. Does anyone have a motion to fill the chairmanship?
I recommend, Mike, you take the role.
Motion that I be elected as chairman has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, none opposed. Thank you. Does anyone have a motion as to who should fill the secretary position? I move that Steve
Touche.
be elected as the chair, or secretary, assuming he is still willing to fill that role.
I am willing to serve, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will now proceed to address the publication requirements for this hearing. Susan,
Yes, sir.
please state your name and town office for the record.
Susan Frederick, Town Building Inspector.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth during this proceeding?
I do.
Did you, the town, place a notice of this hearing in public places?
Yes.
Is this the notice that was posted?
Yes.
Okay.
And in what places was that posted?
It was posted at Town Hall, 2 places on the boardwalk, the post office, and the library.
All right.
Right.
Did the town cause a copy of the notice to be published?
Yes.
And it was the same notice we just referred to?
Yes, sir.
In what papers did that appear?
It was in the Coastal Point newspaper, 5/16/2025, and in the Cape Gazette on 5/13/2025.
did the town send by first-class mail addressed to property owners within 200 feet of the subject property a copy of the information required to be posted on the property?
Yes,
And when was that done?
5/16/2025.
And did you place a notice of this hearing on the property at 89 North Atlantic Avenue?
Yes,
And on what,
5/16/2025.
all right. In the absence of objection, I find that the notice of this meeting has been posted and published consistent with Section 425, Part 107 of the Town Code. I'd like to briefly review the order of events for this hearing. As we proceed, all testimony will be sworn. Participants, once sworn, remain under oath until we finish the hearing. We will begin with a synopsis of the application by the town building inspector, followed by questions by the board. For those who may not be familiar with our procedures, the board members have received copies of the application and any attachments, and the town building inspector's synopsis of that application well in advance of this hearing. We also receive copies of any statements in support or opposition to applications filed with the board, and review them also before the hearing. Accordingly, the board members have reviewed and considered these materials as well as relevant town code provisions in preparation for this hearing. After we have concluded discussion of the town building inspector synopsis, we will have presentation of applicant's evidence with questions, cross-examination, and an opportunity for applicant to present additional testimony. We will also then hear any statements from the public in favor of the application. Is there anyone present wishing to make a statement in support of the application? I see none. I will state that we have 5 signed statements from neighbors, which we have received and reviewed and are part of the record. Next, we will have presentation of any opponent's evidence or statements. Are there any present who wish to oppose the requested variance? I see none. At the close of all giving of any opposing evidence and public statements, the applicants may give rebuttal evidence, followed by closing arguments from applicants. Finally, the board will deliberate and may vote if we finish deliberations today. However, such a vote is only to be considered a part of preliminary deliberations. In accordance with the state sunshine law, the board members have not discussed the application or any evidence submitted in written form prior to this hearing. As a result, these deliberations will be the first time they learn the views of the other members of the board. The final decision approved by a majority of the board, which may be a written opinion, is the official position and decision of the board. Appeals to Superior Court, if any, must be made within 30 days of the filing of the decision with the town. Susan, would you proceed with your synopsis of the application?
Yes. This is Board of Adjustment case BOA 2025-2 for 89 North Atlantic Avenue. There are 2 houses on the lot. This concerns the front house. It is on Block 17 and the northerly 40 feet of lots 1 and 3. It is owned by Bent Anchor LLC, which is John and Mary Conahan. It's an application for variance from Chapter 425 zoning, Attachment 3, Appendix 3, Table of Dimensional Requirements. John and Mary Conahan, property owners of the property at Block 17, northerly 40 feet of lots 1 and 3, addressed as 89 North Atlantic Avenue, are seeking a variance from Chapter 425 zoning, Attachment 3, Appendix 3, Table of dimensional requirements, maximum height for an existing non-conforming structure in order to extend an existing roof area that exceeds the maximum height permitted with a dormer to that roof. Zoning requirements for lots in the R1 district. The residential zone R1 requires the minimum lot area per single dwelling unit to be 5,000 square feet for interior lots. The minimum street frontage is 40 feet, minimum for an interior lot. The maximum lot coverage is 40%. The setbacks for single dwelling units are 20 feet front, 15 feet rear, and 7 feet each side. Front stairs are permitted to encroach into the front setback, but no closer than 10 feet from the front property line. Accessory structures, such as sheds and garages, are permitted to encroach into both the rear and side setbacks, but must be a minimum of 5 feet from either property line. The maximum height permitted is 31 feet and can be determined from grade or from the base flood elevation plus the freeboard. Lot improvements and description. The property at 89 North Atlantic is a 3,600 square foot lot located at the intersection of North Atlantic Avenue and the alley between 4th Street and 5th Street. It is a 40 by 90 foot lot improved with 2 structures, both owned by Mr. and Mrs. Conahan. The property is a non-conforming parcel of land, meaning it does not meet the minimum area requirement, contains non-conforming structures. Neither structure meets the requirements for yard setbacks, height, or together maximum lot coverage, and contains a non-conforming use of the land due to the number of dwelling units on it. The rear structure is a single-family dwelling, and the front structure contains 2 dwelling units. The front structure is the primary structure and was constructed in 1934, predating the town's zoning codes. Sussex County records reference a garage structure that may have originally been the rear structure. From an old survey on file, the lot coverage is approximately 2,014.3 square feet, or 59.95%. The setbacks for the front structure are 11.5 feet front, 5.3 feet on the south side, and approximately 2.2 feet on the north side. The setbacks for the rear structure are 2.4 feet rear, 2.4 feet south side, and approximately 7.3 feet on the north side. A permit was issued March 3rd, 2006 for the elevation of the front house, and the permit was not found, but we have a record of it. According to the new drawings, the height of the front house is approximately 35 feet 4 inches from grade. The elevation certificate shows that the property is located in the zone AE with a base flood elevation of 6 feet. The elevation certificate also shows that the lowest adjacent grade is 6.5 feet and the highest adjacent grade is 7.2 feet. If the height is measured from the freeboard, it would be approximately 35 feet, still exceeding 31 feet, the maximum height permitted. No information was found for the permit issued for raising the dwelling. At the time it was elevated, the base flood elevation was 8 feet, and there was no freeboard. The height determined from the old base flood elevation would have been approximately 34 feet, 6 inches, still exceeding what was the maximum height. The proposed dormer. The applicants are proposing to remodel the interior of the dwelling, combine the 2 units into a single-family dwelling, and add a dormer to lead to a new roof deck. The dormer is required to add sufficient height for 2 sliding glass doors, 7 feet clear. The dormer would be adding to the area of the roof that exceeds the maximum permitted height. The applicants are only asking for a variance from height to achieve this. As referenced above, the lot and structures are non-conforming as a parcel of land due to size, as structures due to dimensional requirements, and as use due to the number of dwelling units. Other than height, the proposed dormer would not affect any other existing nonconformity. Section 425-35, repairs or alterations to a nonconforming structure or building, states that a structure or building which is nonconforming as to dimensions or lot density may be repaired, improved, altered, or enlarged, provided that the repair, improvement, alteration, or enlargement conforms to the requirements of this and other codes, and does not increase any existing nonconformity of dimension or density, and further provided that whenever nonconformity exists because of the number of principal buildings exceeds the maximum number of principal buildings permitted on a lot in that district, no repair, alteration, or improvement shall be permitted which would increase the size, height, width, length, or intensify the use created, for example, created 2 apartment buildings out of a single unit guest house, of any secondary principal building. For purposes hereof, secondary principal building shall mean any principal building on a lot containing 2 or more principal buildings, which, because of its size, location, amenities, nature, and frequency of use, or other factors, cannot be considered the primary principal building. By way of example, but not in limitation, secondary principal buildings would include garage apartments, guest house, and cottages occupied or used less frequently than the other principal buildings on the lot. As referenced above, the property is zoned R1 residential in Chapter 425 zoning, Section 42526, residential bulk density in R1 and R1B districts, and Attachment 5 trade-off chart for R1 and R1B districts will apply. Chapter 42526A, 3 and 4 are the following. New residential buildings and major renovations should incorporate structural elements that are consistent with the best architectural elements that characterize the particular neighborhood involved. Elements to consider in the review of architectural plans include mass, bulk, scale, building height, roof lines, wall planes, and lot coverage. 2, in order to encourage the incorporation of desirable architectural features in plans for new construction and major renovations and balance the interests of property owners, a system of trade-offs or construction options should be created. The dormer is new construction, but consisting of a small area new exterior wall being added to the existing height and a new shed roof. I did not consider this to be a major change or renovation, and variances from the trade-off chart would not be required. The applicants are asking for a variance, Chapter 425 zoning, Attachment 3, Appendix 3, Table of Dimensional Requirements for height in the R1 zoning district for a single dormer addition. And you have received the application, plans sheet 1 through 6, a notarized list of property owners within 200 feet of the site, 4 current photos of the dwelling submitted by the applicants, 2 letters in favor of granting the variance from 83 North Atlantic and 82 North Atlantic, the elevation certificate, and the survey. Any questions?
No. You also received in your offices some additional statements from neighbors?
I received 3 more letters, which I then forwarded to each of you. All in favor.
I'd like to go to the Mikan building schematics. Do we have anything to project any of this stuff onto the, excuse me. Please state your name, sir.
Jim Coffey with Mikan Builders.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in this proceeding?
Excuse me?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Thank you. What I'm looking for is Mikan page 3. That's it. Thank you. Susan,
Yes, sir.
as we look at this schematic, I'm looking at the lower left, and when we look up at the roof, east side of the house, we see the new dormer, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, all of that darker outline at the top is new as part of the new dormer construction.
Are we looking at the front or the side?
We're looking at the top.
That's the front of the house, and what that shows is the railing, and behind that, the wall for the new dormer.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you look at the side of the house,
Yes,
you have a white colored outline coming down from the peak of the roof to the front wall. And that's the existing roof.
yes,
Okay, so everything outlined in dark is new, correct?
yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell us approximately where the 31 feet maximum height would be in relationship to that outlined dormer there?
I think that they're showing it there with that dimensional line. Do you want me to come up and point to it?
Okay,
Do you need me to point to it?
no,
Okay,
I can see it.
okay.
All right. So what that means is that if we were to do a straight line from that point to the right, to where it intersected with the existing roof, everything above that line would be the portion of the dormer that exceeds the maximum height.
For the new dormer, yes. For the existing house, it's there.
Yeah. Okay. Sherwin, do you have any questions?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Susan. That was a helpful explanation. There was a part about the two structures. Is what we're being asked, so the two structures from the survey,
Yes,
there's a house in the back, or
yes.
is it adjacent?
I don't know what that means. This lot is small, and there's a house in the front, and there's a house behind it that is only fronts on the alley.
Okay, so what we're reviewing here applies to the one in front.
Correct. There's no issues with the rear house for this application.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And so the renovation will combine there are two units in the,
The front house currently has two doors and has an upstairs unit and a downstairs. And they're going to combine that, take out one door. The stairwell connects from both sides. So the front house had two units, will now have one.
okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Very good. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. I just have one clarifying question. You mentioned the dormer is new construction, but consisting of a small area, new exterior wall being added to existing height, and then it says a new shed roof. You mentioned new shed roof. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
It's this right here. So
Yeah.
when we say new shed roof, it's
dormer-
this structure.
yeah. The house itself has a gable, and we're adding a shed-roofed dormer to
Ah,
that.
got it. Gotcha.
For the addition.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect.
Jonathan?
No questions.
Just to confirm, so the density is 60%. After everything's done, does that change, or is it still 60%?
It's not adding to the density.
Okay.
Lot coverage just takes a bird's-eye view of
Yep.
what's already there, so they're within the footprint that they have.
And then the height, with all the changes, it seems to me with all the changes, it's either de minimis or there's no change in height. Is that correct?
There's no change in height, but as you can see in the section, that small section of area that is above the height that we allow today, they need that to get the height for a door.
Right. But if it's, like, if it's at 35 today, is it like 35.2, or like, what is the net change after they put the new dormer in?
I'm not, I don't think I understand what you're asking.
I'm just trying to understand it, you know, it's non-conforming now based on the height. I understand the change to the dormer is required for the 7 feet. Does the actual height change?
No.
Thank you.
Susan, as I read the documents, the application in your report, the height of the sliders dictates the requirement for the height of the dormer roof.
I would say so, yes.
So, could the height of the roof be reduced by moving the location of the eastern wall of the dormer? If you look at that outline.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, if we look at the outline of the dormer, you've got an initial triangular portion at the bottom, and then the next portion is, I'll call it the upper structure of the dormer, and you have a straight line facing east, and that's the height of the eastern wall of the dormer, correct?
I still don't think I understand what you're saying. The eastern wall of this is the front of that dormer. That's east, right?
Okay,
So
correct.
that's where the doors are.
All right, so, and the height of that wall is dictated by the sliders.
Yes.
Okay. If you were to move that wall inward towards the peak of the roof, would you reduce the area of the dormer roof that exceeds the height limit?
No, and I think no, because if you see where the line for the maximum height cuts through, that would bring it almost all the way back to the peak of the roof, which I don't think is possible with the interior layout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what the dimensions of that room on the top level are?
With a magnifying glass, yeah.
I know the problem.
I have, yes, I have the big plans here. We can probably flip back to that. All right, let me find it.
Edinburgh.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll do that. We'll do that. All right.
I can tell.
Oh,
The existing, where it cuts in, I have to show you here. This section is 12 feet, so many inches. This comes across as about 27 feet. So they're adding this section here, which Mr. Coffey can probably tell you what the additional square footage is.
okay. All right. couple more quick questions.
Yes.
Do you know how many other structures east of Route 1 are 35 feet or more in height?
I do not.
Do you have a guess?
I would guess there's a couple because, and it would be older homes or homes that were built possibly when the flood elevation changed from 8 feet to 6 feet. And I don't know why they did that, but they actually lowered the base flood elevation on the north side of town. So there probably are ones that would now be higher than what could be built today.
Okay. Would you say that rooftop decks are common in the vicinity?
Yes.
What is the freeboard that you use at this time?
The freeboard was adopted by town council, and what it is it adds 18 inches as a bigger protection to whatever the base flood is, which means that if your base flood elevation is 6 feet in the AE zone here, it would mean your first floor would have to be at 6 feet or above. With the freeboard, it now means it has to be at 7.5 feet above. So it just elevates the building slightly.
Okay. And lastly, do you know what the maximum height was at the time the house was raised?
That's a good question. I believe the maximum height at that time was still 31 feet. I couldn't find the permit, so I'm going with that and the fact that the flood zone was 8 feet,
Okay.
which adds 2 feet.
Does anyone else have any further questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm just wondering, when I saw a reference to the word raised, so can I imply the structure was literally raised?
Yes. Yeah, they put a whole, I think, concrete block foundation under it and picked it up.
Thank you.
Okay. Who will be speaking on behalf of the applicants?
I believe Susan captured all the specifics. We do want to point out that when the house was raised, it was in compliance at the time, and then they reduced the maximum height to where it is now at the 31 feet.
Excuse me, if I may, as to that, do you have records that show what the maximum height was at that time?
I do not know. No,
Okay.
that was a previous owner as well.
Okay, so it's your understanding, but we don't have anything in writing showing what that was?
I don't believe so.
It's
No.
not critical, I just want to understand.
No, we do not.
All right.
You know, and we're really trying to, you know, preserve the town's historic charm. We're running out of homes in Bethany that do that. The rendering, you know, we don't have this much anymore. What we're getting are these big giant houses around here that, you know, it's taking away from the original charm of the home. So that's really what, you know, our approach is, and the support of the immediate neighbors and obviously the rest of the town that got to speak up if they had any opposition to it. So that's really why we're asking for this variance. The existing roof peak, this is the existing. We just want to tie the new dormer into it, not go any higher. We're not expanding the footprint of the house. We are going from, you know, 2 apartments to 1 single single-family dwelling, gone with the classic cedar shakes on the house, and it's a very, very charming cottage that we want to renovate it to. It's in need of it, and prefer not to tear it down and build a new home. So
Okay,
that's basically what I have for that.
all right. The application states that the house was raised, quote, "for flood compliance." Could you explain that?
Well, it was our understanding that the existing house was below the flood zone, and it was raised up to create the block, it was a block foundation that the house was put on,
Okay,
with steel beams to get it, up above
right, right.
where it needed to be.
Okay, please approach. Please state your name, your local address.
John Conahan, 89 Atlantic.
Thank you, sir. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in this hearing?
I do.
Thank you. Please.
I just want to contribute one piece of information. Before we owned this house, we knew the people that owned it. And this was an apartment here, an apartment here, and there was an apartment down here. And so when the lady that owned it, she was in the flood compliance concept, she removed this apartment and then put this on cinder blocks and steel. And so that was the transition, and that was 2006, I believe.
Was that something that was required by the town, or she just wanted to do it for?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay, all right, all right. Thank you.
I have no
No questions?
just a question.
Steve?
Yeah, on the application, it said that the house was compliant when it was raised 20 years ago.
That's our understanding, yes.
Yeah. Susan, would we know?
All I can tell you on that is, to raise a house is not something the town makes someone do. If they had had problems with flooding, and that side of town does flood, they may have done it, and that would reduce their flood insurance. So it might have been something they did to protect their house and reduce their flood insurance. As far as,
Oh, gotcha.
I'm sorry.
If it was compliant?
It-
Like it
as
said it
far
was
as
compliant
compliance,
at the time.
It's there, they were permitted to build it. There may be a certificate of occupancy on file. The file was closed out, that's all I know. It was never an issue. So, and again, the flood elevation was different then. So they might have, misjudged what they were looking at, or
Or it was correct and compliant?
it,
One or the other?
probably.
Yeah.
We need you to speak into the microphone so we can,
So
Catch it
there's a
for the tape.
chimney on this house, and the chimney is still intact from the bottom to the top. And so we keep using the word raised. This house wasn't raised. What happened was they took out the bottom unit and they restructured the bottom unit to make it safer for flooding. And they put in the concrete, they put in the cinder block. There's steel beams in the house. The house never got lifted up. Nobody lifted it up. If you go look at the chimney, you can see it's still the chimney. If they'd have lifted it up, the chimney would be completely ruined. So it never got lifted up, but it got reset. So there wasn't a moment where it became a higher house. This has always been the height of the house, and there's pictures in 99 sea level back when that restaurant was there. There was a picture of this house in a big storm And this house was built in 1934, I don't know when the storm was, but it's identical, you know, it hasn't changed a bit. And the word non-conforming is commonly used regarding this house. Yes, it's a non-conforming house. We like it that way. We hope we can keep it that way, you know? We just want to make little changes so that we can get it to be, instead of this old 2-unit apartment, a single-family dwelling that fits our growing family and that we can enjoy, you know? And every house on the street, on our side of the street, has a deck that looks out, except this one. So,
Thank you, that's very helpful.
okay.
That's it for me.
Can you confirm that the exterior finishes will be consistent with the existing structure?
Yeah,
Siding.
it'll be a natural cedar shake siding. Shingle siding, yes.
Tim?
No questions.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I just want to thank you guys for letting us have this hearing. We appreciate your time. And
Yeah.
I really
You-
appreciate Susan and the way that she's directed us to this moment. She's been very helpful, giving us her expertise. And I really appreciate Jim being able to be here with us today too. So,
Okay,
that's it.
all right. With that, we will close the evidentiary phase of the hearing and proceed to deliberation. As chair of the board, and in accordance with the board's custom, I will proceed first in our deliberations to review the legal standards we apply in deciding applications for dimensional variances and to offer my initial views. We will then hear from each of the other board members in order of seniority. First, variance requirements. Section 425-1 of the code directs that, quote, "This chapter will be interpreted strictly. Variances are to be permitted only in those specific situations wherein a serious and clearly patent injustice, and not just a hardship, would result from the literal application of these regulations." It further states, quote, "When variances are necessary, they shall be limited to the minimum modification capable of avoiding the serious patent injustice and no more." Section 425-105 of the code, which defines this board's powers and duties, states that the Board of Adjustment shall, in its activities and decisions, be limited by the wording and intent of Section 425-1 of this chapter. Applicants seek a variance from Section 425 zoning, Attachment 3, Appendix 3, Table of Dimensional Requirements, maximum height, for an existing non-conforming structure to extend an existing roof area that exceeds the maximum height permitted. Article 5 of Chapter 425 addresses non-conforming uses, structures, and lots. Section 425-35, subsection A, states in pertinent part that, quote, "A structure or building which is non-conforming as to dimensions may be repaired, improved, altered, or enlarged, provided that the repair, improvement, alteration, or enlargement conforms to the requirements of this and other codes and does not increase any existing nonconformity of dimension or density. The proposed alterations to the structure in this matter would increase an existing nonconformity as to dimension, namely maximum height. Under section 425-105D of the Town Code, in considering an application for a variance from a dimensional requirement, the board is directed to consider whether, owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions involved would result in an unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulties. Approval of the variance requires that the board find 4 specific standards are met. The first of those standards is that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular lot or structure in question. In their application, applicants maintain that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the structure involved because it was built in 1934 to a height that was in compliance with the existing code at that time. They also state that the size, shape, and footprint of the structure's exterior would not change, but only the roof deck. The age of the subject structure and its compliance with the town's maximum height at the time it was constructed are clearly unusual. I think Susan indicated that there may be a few others. But it does seem to me that these conditions of this structure may be considered extraordinary and exceptional. The second standard is application of the code to this particular lot or structure would create an injustice. Applicants state that the application of the maximum height provision to their planned improvements would create an injustice because there would be no change to the existing footprint or height, and the deck aspect of the roof change would match the peak of the existing roof. Because the proposed addition of the deck itself would be below the maximum 31 feet, the portion of the project that raises the height concern is the roof of the dormer, which has a different pitch for the roof. The difference between the height of the new roof and the portion of the current roof that exceeds 31 feet would be what constitutes the violation of the current code height limitation. Based on the testimony at this hearing concerning the necessity for locating the dormer as proposed, it does seem to me that it would be an injustice to apply the code height limitation strictly to prevent it. The third element, the conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. Applicants assert that the conditions here involved are peculiar to this property because it is one of only a few remaining old original Bethany Beach houses. In my view, the fact that the age of the existing structures on the property and its various non-conformities do make it unusual and may make it peculiar. The fourth element the board is to consider is whether a variance, if granted, would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purpose or intent of the code. Applicants state that the proposed renovation would not cause any detriment to the public good, but rather would contribute positively. They advise that some neighbors have seen the drawings and they are not aware of any objections. They append to their application statement signed by neighbors at 83 North Atlantic and 82 North Atlantic, stating that they have no opposition to the renovation. In addition, similar statements were filed with the town from neighbors at 84 North Atlantic, 87 North Atlantic, and 91 North Atlantic. Given the support of these neighbors, the absence of any opposition to the variance request, and the evidence concerning the details of the proposed addition, in my view, granting the requested variance would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purpose or intent of the code. In addition to the requirements of the town code, the board must also act in accordance with the Delaware Supreme Court's holding in the Quick Check case that for an area variance, the focus is on the exceptional practical difficulties test, and the court articulated 4 factors to be considered. The first factor is the nature of the zone in which the property lies. In this case, the variance is sought for improvements to a residence in a residential zone. So it appears that this standard is satisfied. The second consideration is the character of the immediate vicinity and uses contained therein. Susan testified, and I believe we also heard from one of the owners of the property, that rooftop decks are common in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. And it does appear that the proposed addition would be consistent with the character of the neighborhood. The next element is whether, if the setback restrictions were removed, it would seriously affect neighboring properties. In this case, we're not dealing with setbacks, but rather the maximum height restriction. It does not seem that allowing the requested variance from the height restriction would seriously affect neighboring properties, given that the overall height of the structure will still not exceed the current height. The support of several neighbors and the absence of opposition, I think, also support this conclusion. Lastly, Quick Check says that we should consider whether, if the restriction is not removed, it would create exceptional practical difficulty for the owner to make normal improvements. The Quick Check decision states in this regard that the board should take into consideration whether, if the restriction upon applicant's property were removed, such removal would seriously affect neighboring properties and uses, and whether, if the restriction is not removed, the restriction would create unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to his efforts to make normal improvements in the character of that use of the property, which is a permitted use. In my opinion, applying this balancing test in this instance supports granting the requested variance. For the reasons previously addressed, I do not believe granting the variance would seriously affect neighboring properties and uses. It does appear to me that denying the variance would create unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for the owners in relation to their efforts to make normal improvements in the character of that use of the property, which is a permitted use. I look forward to hearing the views of my fellow board members. Sherwin.
Thank you, Mike. In my view, all of the criteria for justifying the variance requests have not been met. However, I'm seeing the Conahan? Did I say that? Yeah. The Conahan's desire to maintain and improve a property of this age is commendable. It's beneficial to them, to the town, and to the neighborhood. Consequently, I vote to support granting the variance request.
Thank you, Chairman. Steve?
Thank you. The clarifications on the application shared today were very helpful, especially about the raising of the house and raising of the roof. And again, those clarifications. And I share the same views as our board chair, Michael, and I vote in support of the variance request.
Jonathan?
I agree with the comments of my wise colleagues and also support approval of the variance request.
Yeah, I concur. I agree all the conditions were met, and I also agree the clarification on the height was helpful and approved the variance.
Okay. Do you think that the tape caught Tim's comments? Thank you, Will.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Will. So, would anyone like to make a motion with regard to approval of the requested variance?
Motion.
We have a motion to approve.
Second?
Sherwin seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None. The requested variance is granted, and it's not clear at this point whether there'll be a separate written decision or whether the transcript of this hearing will serve as the decision. But the decision is that the variance is granted. With that, at 11:13, we'll conclude this hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.